Top Jedi. Of course, Rob DiLauro, and with me as always is Miss JennaSayWhat. Jenna, what's going on?
Not too much, Rob. What's going on with you?
Well, let's start off here. You actually had a hell of a week. You were at Dragon Con.
I was.
How was that? How was that?
Oh my God. It was everything I could ever want and more. Everyone, they Dragon Con did their due diligence and had everyone take tests, COVID tests before they let you in the door. If you were not vaccinated, you had to prove that you had a vaccination card. And they were exceptionally strict on the mask rule. Everybody that didn't have a mask on was either escorted out or they were like forced to put their mask back on. Some people were trying to go around the rules by like having a drink in their hand and pretending like they were drinking. And security called that out like immediately. Like they knew like, so yeah, it was incredible. And I got to meet up with a bunch of TikTokers. I did photo shoots. I did, going around the con. It was a blast. It was definitely needed.
That's great. That's super cool. Well, actually, we want to start off, guys, by saying thank you again for your continued love and support when it comes to the show. Thank you for the love that you gave the Lost Boys episode. We really do appreciate that.
Thank you. As a big fan of both of us, from both of us, thank you for letting that go as hard as it did, because Rob and I are gigantic fans of that. So thank you guys.
Absolutely. And thank you for saying, a couple people said that I look like Patrick Swayze in Point Break with that wig on. So it's a good compliment. Thank you very much. So if you like the show, please like and subscribe. Hit the like button, helps us get out to more people. And, tell your friends, tell people that are, into fandom that we focus on everything in pop culture, including horror, sci-fi, fantasy, comic books, all of it. And, we're so happy to take this journey with you. So thank you very much for watching the show, and we're just going to continue on. We actually are going to be focusing on something that's quite current this time around, which is, of course, the box office breaking Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. That's actually going to be our review. But first, we're going to get into Top Jedi. We had some really interesting news coming around this week that a lot of people were looking forward to in terms of new trailers, new announcements, and things like that. We're going to start off with Jenna, though. But Jenna, what's going on in Top Jedi this week?
So recently, Christopher Lloyd was told to just go unhinged. As to why, you may ask. As a big Rick and Morty fan, he is portraying Rick Sanchez in a bunch of little trailers, like mini trailers. And Jaden Martell is playing Morty. He's from It, so you may recognize him from that. So the live action trailers dropped, I believe, this weekend, and I watched them. You have Christopher Lloyd coming up behind Jaden, and Jaden's like looking at the pickle going, I thought that you were over this. I thought that you were done doing this. And Rick comes up behind Morty, grabs a pickle, bites it, he's like, I didn't.
Never.
Spits it, yeah, never, and then spits it out. And the chaos energy that has in it, like, honestly, Christopher Lloyd is such a good choice for this specific character, because he's been in so many things, and he was like a Klingon, so I feel like, as a Trekkie, he was a Klingon, so like I know that he can do a little bit of like dark chaos and stuff. So but there is no date yet on if there is a live action or not. But I'm just gonna enjoy these little mini clips as much as they put out, and they're incredible. They're hilarious. If you have not checked them out, please go check them out. Christopher Lloyd he's an angel.
Well, I didn't know if you know this, but this is actually Rick and Morty history. But when they actually came up with the concept for Rick and Morty, it was just basically a Back to the Future parody. Yes. And it was of Doc trying to screw Marty. that was the premise.
Yep, and that is like
full circle.
Perfect. Yeah, that's a full circle, and I love it. I'm here for it.
So next in Top Jedi news, we're actually going to focus on the Venice Film Festival for a couple of these news stories. One of them that really excited me as a fan of the original David Lynch Dune since I was a little kid, and of course the Frank Herbert novels. Dune premiered at Venice Film Festival this weekend, And, few stragglers aside, as, most critical, situations are, it was, called like an epic spectacle. People really loved it. They said, a lot of people said that was the adaptation of this story that people were waiting for. And it got like a 4-minute, I think, standing ovation at Venice Film Festival. So I'm really excited for that prospect of this being a hit, because it is, like, we mentioned before on the show, it encompasses everything. It really does. It encompasses, like, just the sci-fi aspects, the war aspects, the political aspects, the family aspects. And if you're not familiar, even though we are Pop Jedi, like, I would be wrong not to say that, George Lucas really kind of, people call it homage, but he lifted quite a bit from Frank Herbert's books, including, Spice Running, just the, Desert of Tatooine, for example. There was so much stuff taken from Frank Herbert. So, I just really hope this is a blockbuster. I really do. I'm hoping and I'm praying for it. I really want this to be a big thing, because Denis Villeneuve, he I think he really loves this material, and like the fact that he's got like sequels in the works already for this story just really excites me. I'm just really hoping that it becomes the next big sci-fi franchise. I think it's about time. I think there's a lot of people that love the original 80s one, even though it was kind of like a, I don't know, dare I say, a masterful mess or whatever. But yeah, the fact that it got the love that it got at Venice was awesome. I love hearing that. So
agreed.
that comes out.
I think it's going to be a pretty big movie. There's a large following, and if it's any indication whatsoever, I saw a ton of Dune cosplayers at Dragon Con.
Nice.
So I think that it has enough following that it's going to be a blockbuster, honestly. Next in Top Jedi news, Aquaman. So recently we just got some new photos of his stealth suit. James Wan explains that it's made of Atlantean tech, and it's based off of cephalopods and their abilities to camouflage. Apparently is based off of a 1986 comic book miniseries by Neil. I saw the suit. It looks spectacular. It's not too different than Aquaman's suit now. It has a little bit less. It looks very tactical. There's not like, you don't have like guns and ammo and stuff strapped to him, but it is a little bit more tactical looking. It's a lot more clean.
Yeah.
I like it. I think it's going to be really cool to see it on a big screen.
We're going to travel back into Venice Film Festival news, because just today, Michael Myers himself actually touched down at the Venice Film Festival for the Halloween Kills premiere, which is tomorrow, along with the ceremony for Jamie Lee Curtis and her Lifetime Achievement Award. And
so well deserved.
Yeah, for sure. And as a huge, massive Halloween fan, like we won't even get into how much I love that movie, how much it means to me. Tomorrow especially is really exciting, because not only will we see Jamie get the honor that she deserves, but also it's going to get reviewed. So we're going to get a lot of really solid, hopefully solid reviews for Halloween Kills, which is a film that John Carpenter himself has already, said is one of the best parts of the franchise that he's ever seen. So I'm really super excited for that. And I know John's the kind of guy that, like, will say anything for money, but I think he really means it.
Let's hope.
I really do.
I mean, I have high hopes for the film, honestly.
Yeah,
John,
John
you and I are both Halloween fans, so.
Oh, huge! Yeah, if you guys need any indication of how
I
much
don't have
that movie
anything.
means.
All I have is like a fake heart behind me that I can like point out.
But John, John actually did say to me one time during an interview that we had together, I said, "Are you nostalgic about anything you've done?" He goes, "No, I'm not at all. I don't have anything, like props or anything. I'm not really that nostalgic like you guys are." And he goes, "Honestly," he goes, "if you pay me enough, you could put a fucking space alien in Haddonfield for all I care." That's what he said. Next in Top Jedi, we're going to be graced this week with a trailer for Matrix 4 Resurrections, which, you know, when I saw the teaser that was dropped today, actually, as we're recording, um, I got chills because honestly, like, I'm a huge fan of the Matrix series as a whole. You know, it is very messy.
Yep.
You know, of course, the two after the original, but this looks awesome. It
Yeah.
looks great, and I love how, like, you wouldn't really be able to discern Neo from John Wick. Like, Keanu just looks like Keanu, and I love that about it because it just fits the mold of who he is now, you know. And
Yep.
yeah, like, I mean, it's, you know, like, for, you know, it was just like a little tiny clip or whatever from what we saw. It's exciting. It's really exciting, and I do like the fact that, you know, we're traveling back into it, you know, a world where, you know, Neo is back to being Thomas Anderson, and he thinks that the Matrix is all like a dream. He doesn't remember any of it. Even
Mr.
when he gets introduced to
Anderson.
Trinity,
Yeah.
he doesn't even know who she is.
Yep.
You know, so it's basically like, I don't know, I wouldn't say like all fan service, but there's definitely going to be a lot of callbacks, you know, to the original, I think.
And
And
I feel like there's nothing wrong with having a little fan service because of the fact that, you know, like, it's such an older film. A lot of, like, the younger generation may not quite understand it, but like our generation, the people that went to the theaters watching the first Matrix, I feel like it's gonna scratch that itch that we really truly need.
yeah, well, I don't know if you remember this, but, you know, back in '99, you know, like, I'm not saying it, you know, I'm better than anybody else or anything when it comes to narrative, but I pretty much caught on the first time. But I
Yeah.
remember, like, people were like, "What the hell is this movie?" And then I think around maybe the fourth or fifth time, a lot of people were like, "Oh, I totally get it now. Like, this is awesome." But like the first time, like, you know, like, even when people were shown what the Matrix is, they were like, "What the hell is the Matrix? Like, I don't get this movie at all." Um, but it is absolutely 100%, you know, a worldwide cultural phenomenon. And, you know, the fact that we're getting a fourth, you know, with the Wachowski sisters on deck, it's pretty exciting.
Yep, I agree.
You know, so that actually is going to be theatrically released, and it's going to be on HBO Max this year in December. And of course, you know, look out for that trailer on Thursday. I think it's going to be like a 2 or 3 minute trailer, so I'm really excited to see,
I'm excited.
you know, everything as a whole. But, like, you know, so with Top Jedi out of the way, you know, before we start, again, just want to, you know, remind you guys, if you guys are fans of the show, and I actually got some really awesome messages on Instagram. You know, we are building a fan base, and people seem to love the show. And I don't know, we must be doing something right, because we got another celebrity spotting when it comes to the promotion for the new show, which is, of course, this one here. And Benedict Wong himself, the man, the myth, the legend of phase, you know, of this new phase, because Wong is all over, you know, the new Marvel phase.
Ready. I love him.
He's checking us out. So thank you, Benedict, if you're watching.
Yeah, if you're watching, I love you.
Yeah, I'm a huge, obviously, Doctor Strange fan, so that really, like, tickled me. I was like, oh my god, his ultimate librarian right hand, Wong, is watching us. That's crazy.
He's so cool. Like, I
Yeah,
love that character so much.
me too. Absolutely. So again, before we start, just want to say to you guys, if you love the show, please like and subscribe. It helps us get out to more people. Cannot impart that enough. You know, we cannot take this journey without you guys, and we really do appreciate you for everything that you're doing for the show. With that out of the way, we're going to get into the final part of Top Jedi, which actually leads us into the review. So I think we mentioned before quite a bit on the show that we, Jenna, and you know, even Diana, when she was part of the show, was hoping that Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings would be the cultural phenomenon that it is. And, you know, it is, you know, like, I'm getting a very similar vibe, you know, like when Black Panther came out. You know, like, and with all the stuff that's been going on in the world, you know, not to get, you know, into political stuff, but, you know, Kung Flu and Asian people, you know, getting beat up on the streets for no reason, you know, due to the, you know, pandemic and people's fears and, you know, like, their racism, you know, like, you know, coming out to the surface. It was great to see, like, Asian culture finally get a win. and Shang-Chi is definitely a winner. And I love that it's just breaking the box office right now. And it's sad because I am a fan of Rob Zombie and I do love Halloween. He was actually he was leading the pack for many years when it comes to Labor Day weekend box office with Rob Zombie's Halloween,
Mm-hmm.
and it got knocked out of the top spot by Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. So
Honestly, I love Halloween, but you know what? This was such a spectacular film. Not only like as far as cast goes, as far as like acting goes, as far as like the cinematography in it was so visually stunning.
mm-hmm.
It was beautiful. It was such a beautiful film.
So Jenna, let's get into some history when it comes to Shang-Chi, and a lot of it's very, not very memorable, when it comes to cultural appropriation. But
Yeah.
this was a character.
Unfortunately,
Yeah, go ahead. I'm
I
sorry.
was gonna say, unfortunately, for anything POC related, older comic book wise, it's always gonna be a cringe fest. It's always gonna be very racist. It's always gonna be very, very toxic.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm glad to see that they're shifting that, because that is so the past so bad. So I'm glad that they're doing them justice now.
I absolutely agree. And, so the history of Shang-Chi is pretty simple. He was created by Jim Starlin and some other creators in 1972. And, was kind of based off, like the Legend of Bruce Lee and stuff at the time. They were looking at martial arts films, things like that. Marvel actually got the rights to a book series, which involved a character called Fu Manchu. Fu Manchu was originally supposed to be Shang-Chi's father.
Mm-hmm.
Marvel kind of, righted that ship, as we mentioned before, quite a bit, through the years. But when it comes to appropriation, when it comes to the Shang-Chi character, it wasn't kind in the beginning. It took some time. So of course, he's been part of so many teams, throughout his comic book history, including the Avengers. And here we are now with Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, which is starring Simu Liu. And here's the interesting thing about Simu Liu that we should talk about before we start this review. Before he was, the Ultimate Avenger that he is right now, he was a stock photo model. And
really?
yeah.
What?
That was the first job he ever got, was a stock photo model. Yeah.
That is so crazy.
Yeah. So Simu Liu started he started acting, and as it seems to happen to quite a few Asian actors, they producers kind of told him, like, hey, you need to be a little more Asian, when it comes to this character, and he had to use accents and that kind of stuff. And like he did a lot of different side projects, movies, television shows, did some appearances, even just like walking into a door for a certain episode or something like that. He ended up getting picked up for a series which is based out of Canada. It was on Netflix, called Kim's Convenience, kind of like the Asian Clerks to a certain extent. And it kind of made him a rising star. But this guy is not really known for martial arts, number one. And I think he said in an interview that he had put out some tweets to Kevin Feige, like, hey, Kevin, let's have a conversation. You know what I mean? Let's bring a new character to light. And he didn't think Kevin was going to get back to him. Kevin Feige, did get back to him, and he auditioned for a secret Marvel project. What happened to be the character of Shang-Chi, and he, just to show his, prowess, when it comes to his, agility and stuff, he did a backflip, for the audition video, and I guess when they were filming Shang-Chi, the director actually went up to him and he goes, you know what? Remember that audition video where he did that backflip? He said, that's real tacky. But he was like, you didn't like it? He's like, no, not at all. I didn't like it. But there was something about you. So here we are. This guy who was a stock photo model is now breaking the box office. That is a great story.
That is, I love that story. Mm-hmm. I had no idea. That makes me love him so much more, because that's precious. That's what all of us like entertainers really strive for. We want to have that that break, that somehow you make it, and that gives us a little hope. So
Yeah, most definitely. So if you
Nice.
guys are, like if you're creators and you're struggling, just think of a story like Simu Liu. It's pretty incredible. So of course we're talking about Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. We both saw it, and like we said before, we were hoping it would be the cultural phenomenon that it is, and it seems like it's, like just like Black Panther, like it's reaching in a
Yep.
very broad audience. Not just like people in Asian culture, which is awesome, which is really really awesome because it
Yep.
just shows the longevity of this character and how far they could take him, and they will.
Agreed.
They're going to take him real far. So Jenna, I'm going to ask you because you actually just got your theatrical experience today.
I
Let me
did.
ask you as a whole, like, what did you think of Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings?
Wow. Like that was so good. It was like and of course I speak from, being a white person and being in friends of mine, like people of color, their houses, seeing how their family dynamic works. Whenever Shang-Chi or Sean is in Katie's house and Katie's grandmother is like, when are you two getting married? And like, it was just like that cute family dynamic that I've seen mostly in like people of color's houses. Whereas like my family is exceptionally white and they don't care. They're like, who's that dude? Oh, he's just a friend. Who cares? Like, whatever. It's fine. Like, my family's so dismissive of everything. So, like, seeing that cute family dynamic, I thought was just like, I thought it was a sweet little nod to like how families like that tend to work. Whereas, like, totally opposite spectrum with me. But like it was just cute. And then on top of that, you have like the beautiful like fighting scenes, things like that. Like I've been in a group of people called Street Nerds, and we do fan films, and I've had to learn choreography, like fight choreography. So now that I have that background of the fight choreography, I watched this movie in a completely different way. Like watching all the fight scenes, how beautiful, like it was almost dance like in some ways, and it was just very fluid, very beautiful. And like there were so many parts of the film that were just like, wow, I wish I could like go to this place that's just like it's breathtaking. There were
Yeah.
so many spots like, and then also with Jialing, her like her business where she's like up
Running
in this
Fight Club.
tower having these fights. And of
Mhm.
course, Wong being there, which like whenever I saw him, I was just like, I lost my entire brain. I was like losing it. Like all of it was just cinematically just like breathtaking. It's just breathtaking.
Well,
They nailed it. They killed it.
yeah, I think the one thing that I love about this movie the most is that, like, and the thing I love about Marvel, a lot of people say they missed the mark when it comes to villainy. And I disagree. I think there was definitely a pathos to Thanos, and I think there was a, like,
Yep.
and Wen Wu, who's a man of many names because he's been around for thousands of years. He's not a mustache twirling villain at all.
No.
Um, he definitely has feelings, and he definitely has, a love for his family that, like, I mean, seriously, like, obviously gets
Yep.
conflicted, and that's something we'll get into later on in the review. But I just love that this is actually Wen Wu's story. And, they basically just washed out all the Mandarin stuff so brilliantly,
Mhm.
which is something, like he actually mentions on later in the film. But, even though the name of the movie is Shang-Chi, and this is the origin of, Shang-Chi, the new Avenger, this was actually, it was definitely Wen Wu's story.
Oh yeah. And I felt that they played that very well. Like I
Mhm.
felt like it was a good balance. I didn't feel like there was like it took away
Mm-mm.
at all.
No. And the other thing I love about this movie so much is that everybody got a chance to shine.
Oh, absolutely. And that I thought
Mhm.
that was great. Even the family was in there for a brief period of time. Katie's family was in there for a brief period of time, but you still got a good glimpse of what they are like as a family, as individual people too.
Yeah, most definitely. And like that was something you had actually said too that I really enjoyed, was that like it does bring things around full circle when it comes to you know I mean, again, like this is like this is a review from two white individuals, but
Mhm.
you know when it from what I'm from my understanding and what they were trying to bring across, that was, I think, was very important, is that certain cultures do believe in mysticism, and they do believe in legends and stuff like that, and
Yep.
they have a certain way of life, when it comes to like the way they feel about life and also death. And if you're you know if you're technically like somebody from like a family member that like grew up in America, you know what I mean,
Mhm.
like you're using names like Sean or Katy, and you're not really understanding of all that stuff, you know what I mean, like
Yes.
because you're just so kind of like, grandma, why why are you like that, you know what I mean, like.
Yep.
And I do love that aspect of it, because later on in the movie, it's not even Shang-Chi getting an education of who he is. Katy also gets an
Yep.
education of who she is, just being in Talo, which is
Yes.
amazing. So in the beginning of the movie, we're introduced to, of course, Wenwu, played by Tony Leung, the great Tony Leung, and this is another wonderful performance by him. And Wenwu is basically, he's a conqueror. He's a
Mhm.
death dealer. He's a he just basically gets whatever he wants, through destruction and chaos and stuff. And that's the other thing I kind of loved about this, particular story, because it did kind of feel, to a certain degree, and I say this with love, it felt kind of like an Asian Star Wars. You know what I mean? Like, like Shang can either like, follow the force of his mother and her wushu and, all her,
Yep.
natural energy, or he can go the route of his father, which is also something that was indicative of the colors of the actual rings. When they're
Yeah.
on his father, they're blue, which is, kind of like, dark and menacing, and,
Yep.
because he's all about death and destruction, but of course, once they hit Shang's, wrist, they just glow orange, because he's more, like positive, and, like, I love
Yeah,
that about it.
he has the like lighter, like he's he's a Jedi, not like, but I agree.
Hmm.
I didn't even think about that, but yeah, it that is kind
Yeah,
of in that
because even
realm.
because even Michelle Yeoh says to him, like, you have light and dark, like, flowing inside you. It's, like, time to find out who you truly are.
Yep.
Like she says your mother knew who she was. Do you know who you are?
God,
Um,
that line.
mhm.
So good.
Yeah. So, of course, like we're seeing the death and destruction of Wenwu, and we get that beautiful moment, in 1996, where he goes back to Talo, and he meets his future wife. And I'm going to tell you something. When they were doing the kind of, like, and I love this movie too. Kind of like I think the director actually worked on, or the cinematographer worked on Crouching Tiger and Matrix, and you could
Um,
see those two different
oh,
parallels. The way she was like blocking the rings and stuff like that. But it was
that
such a
makes sense.
beautiful dance, of him just, like he fights with his fists closed. And she's just, like very naturalistic, and,
Yep.
like you said, it's, very balletic. And I teared up during that scene because it was
I
so
did too.
beautiful.
I felt so weird because I was like, why am I crying? But it was just
Mhm.
like it was so beautiful, and you could see their connection growing the more that they were fighting, and the more that she was like able to like keep him at bay, the more
Mhm.
he was like,
Yeah.
okay. And I'm like,
Hmm.
they're falling in love.
Yeah, yeah. And of course, these are two, mortal individuals who, gave
Mhm.
up their immortality to
Be
be with
together.
each other and have children and have a normal life.
Mhm.
um and so of course, Zhao Ling, and Shang are trained differently, because Zhao Ling is a young girl. She wasn't able to train with the boys, and like Shang is trained in all forms of martial arts, and he's trained to be an assassin, trained to be a killer his entire life. So then we get into Shang the adult, and let's talk about that for a second, because you know what? I love that he's kind of a loser.
You know what? I'm going through a phase in my life where I'm kind of in that like kind of teetering on that. So that spoke to me so deeply, because especially when Katy was like, we're doing what we love and what we enjoy.
Mhm.
And I was like, oh my God, you're right. Like, you're right. Do what you love. And she loves driving cars. She loves, like, this is a job that she enjoys. And despite the fact that her family thinks, she needs to do better, she's like, no, this is what I want to do. This is my path. And
But here's the funny thing, when they're having the conversation with the friend, like who's a lawyer and stuff, she says, Katy, you can go into Berkeley right now. And Shang, like 3 different languages. So these are not idiots.
Let me tell you, the moment that Katy was like, well, you could go to bed, or I was like, oh my God,
I've done that many times. Many times.
That was me DragonCon on Sunday. I'm telling you right now, my friends were like, I mean, you could go to bed because you have to leave at 11 a.m. tomorrow and you still have to pack. Or you can go to the DragonCon rave. And I was like, I'll go to the rave. And then I didn't get back into my hotel room until 5:30. So
you know what? I believe you made a great decision.
Personally. I did make a great decision. It made me sleepy, but you know what? Katy resonates with me so hard, especially after that. I was like, oh no.
Yeah. And of course, Katy's played by Awkwafina. And if you guys haven't seen Nora from Queens, which is a Comedy Central show that she does, she's absolutely hilarious. I highly recommend you check that out, because she's kind of like Katy in the show, most definitely.
I have to watch this now.
Yeah. So let's talk about their relationship for a second, because I love that they love each other so deeply, and it's completely platonic, and I love that about it. You know what I mean?
I'm here for it. Completely.
Yeah, it wasn't like, I love you, Shang, like that kind of thing. It was just like they're 2 really good friends, and they go through hell and thick and thin together, and I thought that aspect of it was incredible.
I fully agree with that, because like at the end I was like, please don't put them together. Like, mm-hmm. I know that some people probably want that, but for me, like, I was just like, please don't force that narrative. Mm-hmm. Like, please give me just
there's fan art shipping them right now.
Yeah. People are drawing it right as we speak. But I mean, like, for me personally, like, I like this direction where they're best friends. They love each other dearly. They're going to be there through thick and thin, but they are just friends. And I feel like we need to see a little bit more of that in TV and movies and things like that, showing that a boy and a girl can just be friends.
Yeah. Like me and you love each other, but like, yep, we're not in a relationship. You know what I mean? It's the same thing.
Don't ship us.
Yeah, don't ship us.
Don't do it. Don't put that pen down. I see you.
So, like, we're, like, basically introduced to Shang and his abilities in this incredible bus scene that comes out of nowhere, because his Wenwu's like army of people are looking for these 2 pendants that belong to him and his sister Xiaoling.
Yep.
You know what? This bus scene was absolutely breathtaking. It reminded me of 2 different things. It reminded me of Speed.
Oh my God, yes.
And it also reminded me of there's a Korean film, an excellent Korean film called Old Boy. And, there's a moment where he is actually, it's done in one shot where he's literally just beating these guys to death with a hammer. And it just, like one continuous take. And that's kind of what it reminded me of as he was going through the bus, and you're seeing him, from the outside, just like kicking ass all the way through. I thought, oh my God, that was such a dope scene.
Yeah, I thought of Speed too. That was like my first thought, is I was like, oh my God, it's like Speed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So but in like a totally different way too. I think the only thing is like the whole bus, like the runaway bus kind of thing, and like that fight against the clock kind of situation.
So we're introduced to this guy Razor Fist, who is just this big giant guy who has a he's got a weapon on his arm or whatever. I thought he was a little undercooked when it comes to characterization.
I agree. I think that out of all of them, I think that he was he was the most undercooked. Agreed.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, as you know, as menacing as that guy
Just
is supposed to
fine.
be,
Yeah.
he didn't really, get the standout that I
Yeah.
was expecting.
For me, I'm fine with it because like he was supposed to just be a baddie, and I felt like you realistically, I don't know if you could have kind of finessed a good way to like give him a personality in it, except for like at the very end.
So of course, like we said, like Katy, like has an understanding of, this isn't her friend Sean, and she says right away, she goes, "You could tell me on the plane," which I love because she's like, I'm going, I don't care, you know what I mean? Like we're going together, and so of course he tells her, the entire story about her father and his mother and this and that, and they get to Macau, which is of course Zhao Ling's Fight Club. What were your thoughts on this scene? Because I thought,
oh my god, everything about that, like, so I have a weird fear of like man-made heights, but it's mostly because I have trust issues. So like elevators and I do not get along at all. And whenever she literally read my mind during that scene whenever she's like, this thing could drop at any time, this thing isn't up to code, and those were the exact words in my head, and she said them, and I was like, this girl is me, I love her, I love her. And then it like bounced and she was like, and I was like, that's me too, I feel you, girl. And like whenever they walked in, it was odd. I know it sounds really strange, but it reminded me of like a Marvel version of the Batman film, was a Batman Returns.
mm-hmm.
How it had like the graffiti everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
It was very club-like in every spot of it. It just kind of reminded me of that. And I love Batman Returns. So like that was a huge, like, I don't know, it just it made my heart sing a little bit because I liked that it was like very, grungy and very like inner city, and very like it just had its own glow to it. It was its own like, it looked like a place that honestly I would hands down hang out at. Like if I could go to something like that, absolutely, because it's got like everything that I would want in like a club, other than like the fighting, like the bad, dark web fighting, which I do not, I don't
I
go for.
would totally do that.
You would? I'd be like,
I would
oh my
totally
God.
fight. I would totally fight at that club. Absolutely.
I sometimes get a little too like nervous around that stuff because I'm just like, someone's getting hurt. I'm too much of a cinnamon roll, so I'm just, for me it was just like, oh no. But
not too much anymore. I'm a weird guy. I like to fight. It gives me kind of a charge. Yeah.
I'm passive. I'm the most passive person, so I'm just like, no, they're getting hurt. Like
here's the interesting thing. As they're going through, and I don't know if you noticed these couple little Easter eggs or not, but there's a bunch of fights going on. There's one guy, like getting just ripped apart by a sumo wrestler. It's like throwing him against plexiglass. But there's a black girl that's dressed completely in black, and she's fighting a soldier that's like basically like changing a bunch of colors. So I think he is one of the soldiers that got injected in Iron Man 3, and she was one of the widows that deflected in Black Widow, and she decided to do that with her life, because remember, they were like, well, what do we do now? And she's like, live. And I think that one decided to be a fighter.
That's crazy. Yeah, like, yeah, I can see that. I can absolutely see that.
So then we get to the main ring, and they look directly at Wong fighting the Abomination of all things, Emil Bronsky, of course, from the Incredible Hulk of Edward Norton years.
Yes.
What were your thoughts on that whole thing?
I was so giddy during that part. I just like sat up in my seat and it was like, oh my God, it's Wong. Like, I just like, I don't know. I love that character so much. I've always been in love with that character since Doctor Strange, and seeing him like in this big fight, like my brain was like, please don't hurt him. Please don't hurt him. Please don't hurt him. Like, I was just like, because I'm coming off a Suicide Squad. So I'm kind of like, oh God, please don't kill him. Like, I was just like so stressed out. And then once he like, did his portals and had the Abomination punch himself and knock himself out, I was like,
Yeah, I think it's more than that. I think they were really friends, and they were
yeah,
fixing the fight.
yeah,
Remember he said, you did that a little too hard. You want to see what that feels like? And that's when and then he punches
yep,
himself.
yep,
But the interesting thing is that when the fight was over, he makes a portal, and it looks like Emil Bronsky's going back to, like some sort of solitary confinement. Could be the raft, could
mm-hmm,
be somewhere else. But
yep,
I have a theory about that, and I think Wong is actually allowed to train Abomination to like hone his fighting skills or whatever, because that's why Julie Louis Dreyfus is going around and recruiting people for
yep,
this Thunderbolts team, and I think Abomination is definitely somebody on Thunderbolt Ross's radar. Like,
for
oh,
sure,
I can hone the power of an actual like gamma radiated soldier.
yep.
Yeah,
And I
so I think
know,
that's definitely it. So of course, Shang is because of his internet fame due to the bus fight, he has to like fight because like everybody thinks he's like super famous, and they're like, oh no, you got this, we saw you beat the hell out of a bunch of guys on the bus or whatever, and turns out to be his sister Zhao Ling. um and I thought this scene was really beautiful, because like you could tell that she loved him, but like she
mhm.
was really pissed off, and she was not holding back. Like,
Again, it's all about family.
mhm. Like, father told me I couldn't fight, and I'm really punching you in the face. Like, and you
Yes,
left me. You left me. And you could tell
yep,
that she was still very upset about that too. But I love the dynamic, automatically, when it comes to, Shang and Zhao Ling, his sister. And then of course, we're introduced to Wen Wu, and he takes him back to his Ten Rings compound.
mm-hmm,
Um, you know, okay, well, let me ask you this, because we were talking about him being a sympathetic villain for the most part. Did you feel like that was, do you think that resonated? Did you
yes,
feel sorry
absolutely.
for him?
Yeah, absolutely. Because I feel that the saying of like, um in villains, in a villain's world, they see themselves as a hero. And I
Hmm.
felt like with him hearing his wife's voice, he I feel like the rings probably drove him mad, because I know that his that Shang-Chi was like, this, he hasn't taken the rings off since mom died. And I feel like those rings were driving him mad to like make him go to the cliffside and to get, to bring back his wife.
Yeah, she's beyond the gates. Yeah.
Yeah, that she's beyond those gates. And I felt like he was doing it for the right reasons, but wasn't in a clear mindset. How, like, before that, with the whole like prior to him meeting his wife, like absolutely he was a pure villain,
Hmm.
but we don't really know why he like had such a power trip, because it could have been something that spiraled him to make him, want that, or it could have been the rings driving him mad. So you kind of wonder about like what happened before to make the rings, if it was the rings in general, like bringing out that darkness that was in him, like what his wife had said is like, you know
I think the most fascinating thing that like resonated with me when it comes to Wen Wu and his family. Like he basically almost killed Shang-Chi on a bus. They
yep,
were like, we sort of talked about the scaffolding fight, the
yep,
bamboo scaffolding fight, which, if you don't like heights, whew, it's rough. It's a rough one.
yep,
But like, he put his kids through so much peril so many times, but like automatically he goes up to Shang and he goes, I told my soldiers that they wouldn't be able to beat you,
to
and I'm
kill
glad I
you,
was
yeah,
right. And it's just like, and he's not even angry, you know what I mean? Like, where have you been? He knew
yep,
the entire time. I gave you 10 years and you did nothing with it. So, now it's time to, start up the family business again. But here's the other interesting thing that they played into in this movie, and I'm not really seeing it in a lot of other reviews, because you know, to me, like even the dynamic, you know, even though they were happy with each other and, you know, like had children and they wanted to live a normal life, it was almost like in a weird way, it felt damning towards matrimony in a certain way. You know what I mean?
Mm,
Like, you know, certain people have this, you know, this feeling like, you know, when you give yourself away to somebody completely, that you're giving away, you know, your hopes and your dreams and certain things. When it comes to Shang's mother, it's giving away her immortality. So of course, you know, in a really horrible scene, you know, when this Iron Gang, you know, comes to seek revenge on Wenwu, like, you know, she doesn't have her abilities anymore and she just gets beat to hell, you know, beat to death. And
yep.
you know, it was interesting to me that, you know, that was the one thing that rang for me. You know, maybe because I just think marriage is awful, but you know, like it was almost like it was damning towards matrimony. Like, you know, she gave everything to this man, but at the same time gave everything else as well, like her immortality, her abilities,
Yeah.
you know, to, if she was the same, you know, like protector that she was in Talos, she would have survived those guys
It's
easily. Like,
easy, easy
yeah.
peasy. Yeah, she would have. And the thing is like in a relationship you do give and take. And I feel like she gave way more than what he did.
Hmm.
But I mean, you didn't really see like a whole lot. But I feel like with her giving up like not only her powers, but her immortality, her family,
Hmm.
like they weren't allowed to go back.
Yeah.
Like that's a huge
That
thing.
gate,
Like
that
that's
gate,
so
that gate. I
much.
think that gate only opened up like once every year, I think,
Yeah.
wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. So
Um,
it's just really sad because like she is, you could tell that she has a really good heart. Like
she
her
was, she
she
was, she was a goddess.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, she was such a wonderful woman.
She's I mean, a goddess, like literally a goddess.
Oh
You
yeah,
know,
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
In
Um,
all forms of the word.
in
Absolutely.
all senses of the word. But I just thought it was really interesting that, you know, like, you know, because, you know, she gave her heart to this man that, you know, she didn't have the abilities to protect herself. I just
Hmm.
thought that was, I thought that was interesting. It was an interesting take, on that whole situation. Like this
Yep.
man just took everything from this woman. I want to talk about the woman aspect for a second. Wenwu's plan is to obviously go back to Talo, which is his wife's homeland,
Yep.
mystical homeland. Um, and I think this is actually this is a mystical world that was played in the comics. I think it's actually one of the 9 realms. You know, like Thor and Asgard,
Yes.
Talo. You know what I mean? Um, so, you know, like his plan is to go back and, you know, break down this wall. You know, because her soul is supposedly trapped on the inside. So they, you know, obviously reached Talo before him. But before they reached Talo, now here's the thing I want to talk to you about. This whole thing with Trevor Slattery, played by um, the great Ben Kingsley. Like, I would never think in my wildest dreams that this would be the thing that happens to this man after Iron Man 3. And of course, we're interested, you know, we're
Same.
introduced to one of your favorite characters, Morris. So
Oh, I
what were
love
your
Morris.
thoughts on this whole thing with Trevor? I thought it was beautiful.
I thought it was perfect.
Mm-hmm.
It was a great it was a great way to bring him back. It was also like a good way to like give him give him some like a cool story behind him as well. And now he's I feel like he's probably living in Talo forever now. I feel like he's probably stayed there. Like he just because like you have the scene where he's with the kids and he's you know being
Playing
I think a
football and stuff.
referee.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's just like it's so cute. And then like whenever he's like laying there dead and Morris
Mhm.
runs up to him, you can tell that like he knows that Morris needs to be there and he loves this animal so much. He's going to stay. He's going to stay. And he's just like, I'm playing dead. You play dead too if you want to survive. And Morris is just like, eh.
But
Like,
here's another interesting thing about this whole Trevor Slattery thing, because, you know, I mean, back when George Bush Jr. was a president, he's a war criminal, straight up and down, no question
yeah,
about it, right? You know, but now he's the lovable, like, you know, guy who paints, and nobody thinks of him as this guy who did all
yeah,
this really horrible stuff overseas,
yep,
and the mass amounts of death that he caused, and, you know, all these different things. And
yep,
again, you know, unfortunately, I have to get into politics when it comes to this explanation. but Trevor is exactly the same way. When
Yeah.
he, when he created, the character of the Mandarin with Guy Pearce, I mean, he was really killing people. He was
Yeah.
really scaring, the world in America,
Yep.
as this appropriated character, so, like in the same vein, it kind of felt like, he was kind of like in the George Bush Jr. territory. This guy used to
Yeah.
be like a complete and utter monster. But I think Trevor Slattery, like even when he was doing all that Mandarin stuff, I think he was so junked out that he didn't even realize what he was doing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
Redemption arcs are my favorite arcs.
yeah, me too. I like
love them.
I like the redemption aspect of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
He
so
loves Morris so much.
yeah, the chicken pig.
Yeah. That thing like freaked me out at first because I was like, why doesn't it have a head? Where does it eat? Like it was just so.
Well, that's what he said to her. He says he's very uncomfortable about that. He's very uneasy about that conversation because he
Yeah.
didn't have a face.
Yep. It's just like at first it was so uncomfortable seeing this animal without a face, and it's just like, oh my God. But like almost immediately I just started to fall in love with them. And then I was just like, by the end of the movie, I was like, I want this. I want a Morris. I want one so bad. They're so precious.
I think they're definitely going to make some plushies of that.
Oh, they better. I want one.
So they steal Razorfist's douchey car with his name on the side of it.
God, honestly, whenever they panned over to that car, I was like, oh yeah, I can see that. Like it didn't even like, it didn't phase me at all. I was just like, yep, that checks out. Like,
oh, totally, yeah.
It totally checked out. It was just like, yep.
And they get to Tallow, and we're introduced to the wonderful Michelle Yeoh playing Nan, which is their auntie, their goddess auntie, basically. And just this whole thing with Tallow was just gorgeous from the moment you step into this world. God, it was so beautiful.
Yeah, I agree. Like I want to go there so bad.
Oh yeah, just like all the mythical creatures running around, and just how uniform and protective all the these this group of people is, and it's Shangri-La. It really is. It's just a beautiful place.
Yes, I agree. And aren't some of those creatures, those mythical creatures, some of them actually from Chinese lore?
They are actually based in Chinese mythology. Yep. Including Morris. Yep. He's a creature of chaos from the research that I had done.
Yep.
And the that dragon horse was like, when he just kind of looked at the car and he was like, that's a weird looking horse,
I know. I was just like, oh my God. But like the second that, like, I loved that they did a close up of his face, of the dragon horse's like face and mane and stuff.
Yeah, it was just wise. He's like, you're just gonna hit me with your car?
Yeah, I was just like, it goes back into like my whole thing of like, wow, this was visually spectacular. And just that creature alone, I'm so glad that they focused in on his face, because it was just such a beautifully done creature.
Yeah, all of the creatures
the CGI, like the CGI crew, bravo to them. They did a killer job.
Like even the guardian lions were beautiful.
Oh my God, they were. Every animal in this was so visually appealing. It was eye candy. It was literally like, I felt like, wow, this is incredible. I think the last time that I felt this way about a film, it was with Avatar.
So they're welcome back to their family, of course, and Nan is actually teaching Shang her ways, the ways of the Force, we'll say. And as they're fighting, of course, and this is the thing I love the most is, just like his father, he has the same fighting ability where he's got his hands closed, and he's just like, he's going for the kill, and he says, like, I want to know, like, what is, your secret? What was my mother's secret? To defeat,
how did she defeat
my father,
my dad? Yeah.
And she opens his palm. That's the only thing.
Yep.
It's the only thing.
I almost feel like that was kind of like a euphemism for like life, is like whenever you're closed off and hard and violent, you can't win.
So of course, we're introduced to the Tallow weaponry, which is dragon scale. so Xiangling and Shang both get their suits that their mother left behind for them.
Mm-hmm.
And Katy goes off with the tribe, like she's like,
Yep.
I'm going off with them.
Yep. And I have to touch on the subject of the costumes. They were a new like a newer age version of like a lot of the ancient Chinese like dress. And I, as a costume designer myself, seeing the way that they put those costumes together, all of the little bits, I'm so glad that I did see it in the theaters because of the fact that like all of the textures of the clothing, of the articles of clothing, like the entire time I was just like, wow, these costume designers really nailed it. They
it's going to be nominated for an Academy Award, I think.
Details. Oh, absolutely. All of the little details on the costumes, everything was so beautifully done. And so I had to touch on that because like as someone that does costumes, that works with fabrics so freaking often, it was like looking at those costumes, I was like, God, I just want to touch that fabric. That's all I want to do. I just want to touch the fabric and just like see, like, it's just so beautiful. They killed it.
So of course, we reach the final battle, and when Wu, touches down in Talo, with his army, and he, does what he's going to do. He's going to break down that gate to get his wife back, because of course, he's hearing, he's not only hearing her, he's seeing her. So he's very convinced, like, I can bring her back.
Yeah.
What was your favorite moment about this scene? Because there's so much to unpack with this, this epic battle that happens at the end of this movie.
So again, I'm kind of a Jill of a lot of trades, not all trades, but a lot of trades. And I'm actually an archer. And my father was an archer. So like I kind of have that tradition of being an archer. I love that she automatically picks up this bow. She trains for like a day and she's got it, because that's kind of how I was whenever I picked up a bow for the first time. So again, Katy resonated with me on so many different levels so often. And her shooting that arrow, that like kill shot arrow, whenever all else was like, it seemed like it was all for naught, that they were all going to perish, that this was it, like we're going to lose. And she hits that thing with that arrow.
She gets really excited. Yeah.
I felt that excitement because again, I did archery for a while.
Well, the other thing is, like we had mentioned before, just like Shang, she's learning about her heritage as well, and that was something that her family always wanted her to do.
Yep.
But she's getting it like in real time, which is great.
And I feel like this was just such a cool, like a little thing where she's like, she's a superhero in her own right.
Oh, most definitely. So let's touch back to the actual history for a second. So basically, Nan tells Shang that this dark, power had actually, tried to break out of the gate before. And, that's where we're introduced to the Chosen One, which is actually the dragon that lives, underneath the water. Another beautifully done creature. Stunning, just the way, it kind of, like just kind of serpentine, and it just, like it kind of floats on the wind and stuff. It was really, really amazing. But let's talk about that whole soul eater, like darkness thing. I mean, do you think that there's anything to that, kind of parallels maybe like what's going on with, maybe Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, or, something along those lines?
Honestly, I felt it was probably more of a standalone. Like I feel like it may just be a standalone creature. It's not necessarily going to be like a tie-in to anything. I feel like they're tying him in a good way. Like they don't need the animal to like help tie him into the multiverse.
Yeah. I agree. But I think there's something to that because, even with the What If show, there is this tentacled creature that's being shown many times, and I think that this darkness might come from the same world. You know what I'm saying? So
okay.
even though it's not necessarily like a big bad that we need to worry about.
Yeah.
There are other gateways that we have not opened when it comes to the Marvel Universe yet, and this
That is
definitely
very
something.
true.
So, of course, this huge battle is, going on, and even, Wenwu's, team of Razor Fist and stuff are just like, you guys are right, maybe we should band together because these Soul Eaters are just, sucking souls left and right. Just this huge, beautiful spectacle, and of course, we have this ultimate battle between Wenwu and Shang-Chi, and this was beautiful because like we had mentioned before, it's kind of like an Asian mythological Star Wars, because his 10 rings, Wenwu's are blue, and when Shang is using, they're orange, and just that that battle between light and dark was awesome. So
I almost felt like they were a gold, almost like the same color as like Doctor Strange, like they're
the portal, yeah,
portals, yeah.
Did you have any thoughts on their fight?
Oh my God. It was absolutely, it was one of those moments where while I was watching it, I was just so stoked and hyped, because like whenever he was able to control the rings from his dad, I was like, whoa, Shang-Chi is like, he's powerful. He's powerful. Like he's able to like steal his father's rings. And I feel like
he just turns the tide, like the actual color of them. Yeah.
He completely changed the whole trajectory of what his dad was planning.
And this was no surprise to me that Wenwu actually sacrifices himself to save his son. But it's just so, I don't know. Like I said, it's like, it's like Asian mythology, Star Wars, like just the whole thing. I mean, like even the fact that, Darth Vader sacrificed himself for Luke,
Yeah. 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 I can see that.
Let's be real. Let's just be real,
That makes, I can see exactly how you feel on that one. Cause it definitely was like, I felt like his dad sacrificing himself and giving his son the rings. It was just that like that last good thing that he knew that he needed to do. Like he knew in his heart of hearts he needed to do this. This was the great sacrifice that he needed to do for his son, because his son deserved to have those rings. He deserved to be the superhero that he is, where we get to see him become.
And the thing that I love is we're just back at the bar with her friend, and they're just regaling their, like adventure to her. And she's just like, are you screwing with me? Like, seriously, like,
yeah. She's like, okay, I get it. Like I upset you the last time that we talked. Like, I get it. And freaking Wong just, he's like, hey, come here. Yeah. And I love how he just like, he grabs her drink and shoots it down.
Yeah,
and like,
yep.
Beautiful. After that whole conversation that they had, and he had no idea that there was something like that they had that conversation, and just comes in, boom, like.
Yep. And says to him, like, do you have the rings? Good, get over here. And she could come too, so
yep.
I'm really excited for the prospect that it's not just going to be Shang-Chi, that it's actually going to be Katy following his adventures.
Oh God, I love it. I'm so happy. Awesome. I am so happy. Whenever he's like, you're coming too, and she's like, oh, okay,
I guess I'm going too. I'll call you.
Yeah, it's just like, thank God. Yeah, that again, Katy resonated with me so hard. I love her so much because she's just like, I don't know, she reminds me a lot of myself. I see a lot of myself in her, and I was just like, oh my God, I love this. And then of course, the end of like her being like, well, we could though, but and then they're back at the karaoke bar, and I'm just like, yes.
Yeah.
Again, coming off of Dragon Con, that made me realize, I was like, man, I am such a Katy. That is who I am. Like that is my personality. I'm like, well, you could, but let's talk about the post-credit scenes, because you know what? Honestly, I was shocked. Because Jialing, of course, was supposed to go back to the Ten Rings compound and shut it down. And she decided not to and take over her father's, position,
which could be good or bad. You know what I mean? But the thing I love about it is that she was training women.
Yep.
So the post-credit scene, this is what we really need to talk about because basically we're introduced to, I guess we're in the Sanctum Sanctorum. Yes. Wong is talking to Shang and Katy about these rings that are sensing a beacon of some sort, and we're through the same hologram that they used in Endgame.
Yep.
It's Bruce Banner, who's normal again with a broken arm because he snapped, and Captain Marvel.
Yep.
So I guess my question is like, okay, well, first of all, the 10 rings aren't of supernatural origin. Actually, in the comics, they are alien, but I think they're actually flipping the script on that, because if it was like a force that was coming from an intergalactic, sense, Carol would know about it. You know what I mean?
Yes. Oh, for sure. Yeah.
So it's got to be the other way. It's got to be like some sort of supernatural force or whatever.
Yep.
Any theories?
I'm wondering if like Galactus of some sort.
Whoa, that'd be huge. Honestly, I think honestly, because of the whole tentacle monster thing that we're seeing in the What If series and stuff, I think, and this is a character that was rumored to be the big bad in Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. I think it's Shuma Gorath, which is technically, kind of like the Cthulhu Lovecraftian old god figure in the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Okay, I can see that. Yeah.
Like Destroyer of Worlds, World Eater. Especially like, multi-dimensional worlds, just basically like a Pac-Man that just destroys and devours. And I think it might be Shuma Gorath. I'm hoping.
I can see that.
But I like your Galactus theory too.
I think that they're going to eventually bring him in. They have to, right?
Guys, if you are a fan of the show, please like and subscribe. It helps us get out to more people. I cannot say, too much more wonderful things about Shang-Chi. If you guys haven't seen it, go see it. It is the phenomenon that it is for a reason. I think, Marvel, especially this phase, and this is something that, we've also talked about. I'm really excited for this phase. It's also unique and different. With that, guys, that's our show. Like I said, thank you for your continued love and support. Please like and subscribe, and we'll see you next week. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.